Hello and a warm welcome back to our channel. Today we're going to be talking about summer sleep for your baby. As we know, if babies don't sleep, you don't get any sleep. So we're going to be telling you what you can do to make baby more comfortable when those temperatures really start to soar. But we're also going to be covering it from a safety perspective as well, so that you understand and are aware of some of the things that you need to know about why it's important to keep those temperatures low. So stay tuned, we're going to get started right now. One of the most common things that parents will ask us about is sleep. But when it comes to the summertime, obviously the temperatures can start to soar. Everybody gets hot, everybody gets a little more cranky, and sleep can come in short supply. So today we're going to give you some hints and tips about what you can do to make sure that everybody is a little bit more comfortable and a little easier to sleep. What can you do with the baby's bedroom? That's the first question that we get asked. So whether baby is sleeping in the room with you, sleeping in their own room, it doesn't matter. All of this applies no matter where baby is sleeping. Firstly, this is not going to come as any great surprise to you. Keep baby's room cool. Okay, maybe that's a little too straightforward. How do we do that? So first of all, you can keep your drapes, blinds, curtains, whatever it is, closed through most of the day, particularly where the sun is going to be in the afternoon, because that's where the heat of the sun is and it doesn't have the opportunity to dissipate. So keep your baby's room as cool as possible by just not letting the sunshine beat into their room. So keep the shutters closed, blinds, curtains, whatever it is, so that you don't allow that heat in the first place. Secondly, if you have air conditioning, make sure that it runs all day as well as all night. We don't want baby to be cold, but we certainly want baby to be comfortable. We all need to be comfortable. And in terms of sleep, we all sleep better in a slightly cooler temperature than maybe you might expect. So if you've got the AC running and you've got the blinds closed, you're not going to let in that intense heat. So it's going to be easier to keep the room cool. Even with AC, and especially without AC, you can get a fan or maybe two and keep those running throughout the day as well. Because remember, baby's going to need to nap. Now, they may not always necessarily nap in their bedroom, but we certainly want to make sure that when they do nap or they're going to bed at night, that it's nice and cool for them. If you have a bedroom that just, no matter what you do, you've tried all of those hints and tips already and it's just not cooling down, then I would suggest either putting a bowl of ice cubes in front of the fan or a bowl of ice cubes on top of the AC, so that the cold air as it comes out gets even colder, and that can really help to make the room a lot more comfortable and a lot more palatable for sleep. So try those hints and tips to keep the room where baby's going to sleep nice and cool so that everybody can get a little bit more sleep. Next comes to what are you going to put baby in to wear to go to bed or to go to sleep. So first of all, we would always suggest using natural materials. So things like cotton are great because it's a natural fiber. Baby's going to be able to breathe. Their skin is going to be able to breathe in a natural fiber. We want to stay away as much as we can from man-made fibers and keep those things like fleece until the winter when we really need those extra layers to make us a little bit warm and cozy. So something nice and natural is going to help the body to breathe, but we also need to dress the baby appropriately in terms of what layers they require. So first of all, babies don't need a blanket like we have become accustomed to, so they really don't need those layers. Dress according to the temperature. So what that means is you want to put layers on your baby based on the temperature. If you've got the AC cranked up and you feel like you're walking into a freezer, then obviously baby's going to need some extra layers. However, if you're like most houses, and of course heat rises, so if bedrooms are up on a higher level, that's where it's going to be really hard to keep the temperature cooler up there. So going for lighter layers or less layers and a natural fiber is going to make baby a lot more comfortable. If at any stage baby appears to be warm or flushed, then it's important to make sure that you remove some of those layers and you do what you can to reduce the temperature that the baby is in. It's not a good idea for baby to look or appear flushed or appear to try like they're sweating, because as you probably know, babies don't sweat, and so it's harder for them to regulate their temperature. So you're not going to see beads of perspiration on their face and therefore know that they're warm. Babies should be cool to the touch. They shouldn't be warm or hot. If they're hot, then I would suggest removing some of those layers, perhaps giving them a cooler bath than you would normally do. Obviously not a cold bath, that's not going to be very palatable to baby, but try and make sure that you can reduce their temperature, just even having them sit in their diaper and get some airflow around them. Have a fan that's blowing towards you but not directly on them. Again, we don't want to shock their system. We don't want to overly cool them down. We just want to make sure that they're comfortable. When it comes to baby's skin, it should never really be sticky. So unless they've just had a feed and maybe they're a little bit wet under the chin from having a feed, that's a little bit different, but babies should never be sticky. Just make sure that they themselves are cooling down. One of the things we want to prevent and ensure that we prevent is what we call S.I.D.S. S.I.D.S stands for Sudden Infant Death Syndrome. And one of the triggers for S.I.D.S is overheating. Now, it might sound like that's very simple, and it is. It just means we need to keep the baby at a temperature that doesn't exceed 20 or 21 degrees. Now that is easier said than done. Obviously, when temperatures can soar in the summer, the AC can break, or perhaps you don't even have AC. So that's where those hints and tips about putting the fan on, keeping the curtains closed, having the ice cubes either over on top of the AC grate or in front of the fan, that will help to cool the baby's room. So it is important because it can be life-threatening if the baby overheats. When it comes to bedtime, follow your regular bedtime routine, maybe having a slightly cooler bath than normal so that baby feels a little bit more refreshed and a little bit cooler as a result of the slightly cooler bath. Again, your baby will tell you if you're giving them water that's too cold. They will shout at you, and rightly so. So once baby's had their nice cooler bath, they can have all of your usual bedtime routine, and again, making sure that the fans are flowing, the AC is on, and the baby is kept cool. We're going to put them into what is temperature appropriate bedtime clothing. So if your temperature is above 27 degrees, which hopefully it never gets to, but again, circumstances like the AC breaking, the rooms can get really, really warm. That's where you probably are not going to have baby in anything other than maybe a onesie and just a diaper, because it's too warm. You don't need anything. Think about how you would feel yourself in that temperature. If you can bring the temperature down slightly, then if you're in the 24 to 27 degrees range, then I would suggest a onesie and a diaper. Or if you don't want to do a onesie, you could do a very light swaddle with a muslin, or maybe a 0.5 tog swaddle or swaddle sack. Again, if we can bring the temperature down again, that's even more favorable, so that we're in the 21 to 23 range, which is starting to get a little bit more normal considering how most houses will have the heat rise, so the upper portions of the house are quite warm. That's where you would probably go for a onesie and a one tog, or a onesie and a swaddle. If you can bring your temperatures and keep them down so that it is not terribly warm, and you're in the ideal temperature of 16 to 20 degrees, now I know that sounds pretty chilly, but that's the best ideal situation in terms of temperature for us all to sleep in, not just babies. So 16 to 20 is definitely on the cooler side, but that is the ideal temperature. If you're in that temperature, then baby can wear a regular pajamas and a light up to 2.5 tog sleep sack. But follow your baby, understand your baby, watch your baby, observe your baby, and understand what works for them. Some babies run very warm, and so there's no way they would be able to wear a pajamas as well as a sleep sack. That would just make them too hot and therefore cranky and not able to get any sleep. It's always suggested that you have a thermometer in your baby's room and not just a thermostat downstairs, because like I've already mentioned, when heat rises, it can appear to be cooler downstairs, but actually upstairs is much warmer. So just remember, heat rises, and have a thermometer in the baby's room is going to give you a true indication of how warm it is. If you set up a fan in baby's room, it's definitely advisable to make sure that that air can circulate, but that that fan is not directly on baby, because again, they can get too cold, and having a fan directly on them, as you know yourself, when you settle and you're still and you're sleeping, you can get too cold. So again, we don't want baby to wake up because they're cold in hot weather. Make sure that air can circulate within the crib so that the base of the crib has the ability to have air go underneath, and you also have air that can circulate well around the crib. Now, it's probably a good idea to mention at this point that if your baby is under 1 year of age, there should be nothing in their crib for additional playtime or things that we would consider loveys, because again, that can lead to overheating, and from a S.I.D.S recommendation, it is not recommended that they be there. So make sure that the baby's crib is empty and that there's good airflow. It's not a good idea to have the fan blowing directly on your baby, because I'm sure you've all seen babies in the wind or anything like that, and when the fan is blowing directly on them, it can to them be like they're being waterboarded, and they're not going to be able to understand how to breathe, and they're going to get all and so they're obviously not going to be very comfortable or settled. So that's not fair for them either. So we're not getting the benefits of them being able to be cooled by the fan in their room if it's blowing directly on them. So one more thing to mention when it comes to babies and really warm temperature is making sure that they are hydrated. Now, for tiny babies, for young babies, this is very simple. It just means feeding adequately. So whether you're formula feeding or breastfeeding, just continue as normal and make sure that you're seeing the types of output that you would normally see. So if you're used to 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 wet diapers a day, that should continue. Obviously, for older babies, they don't urinate quite as frequently, and they certainly don't poop quite as frequently. So just make sure that they continue on with what is normal. If your baby appears that they are not giving you that urinary output, that is the first sign of dehydration. So that's where we need to make sure that we are increasing the volumes of their feeds. Naturally, if you're concerned in any way, speak to your primary healthcare provider or your pediatrician so that they can recommend what the next course of action would be, because dehydration can get serious pretty quickly. I hope you found this helpful. Remember, cooler is better. So when it comes to sleep, we all sleep better in cooler temperatures. If you liked today's video, then we would love to get your comments. We would love to know what you do to keep your baby's room cool. If you've got some hints and tips to share with other parents, then we would love to see them. So you can hit the comment button down below. You can also tell us what you thought of this video and let us know if you thought it was a good video by giving us a thumbs up. And if you thought it wasn't, give us a thumbs down. Let us know why. We want to make sure that you're enjoying the content. And if you like the content overall, we would love to have you hit that subscribe button and keep along for the journey. Our videos come out every Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern, and there's a new video every week on all things parenting. So don't forget to tell us what type of videos you would like to see us producing next, so that we can help you with the information that you are looking for. Until next time, take care.